Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness, a podcast dedicated to all songs that Andrew McMahon has been involved in. My name's Steve, and today we're going to talk about a song that he wrote a long time ago. It is a Something Corporate song, which of course qualifies it for the fourth song in our Something Corporate Fall series. This is the last one that we're going to do before the When We Were Young festival that's happening this weekend. And just like previous Something Corporate Fall episodes, we of course brought a special guest along for the ride. Now, Bella hasn't been on the show in nearly 2 years when she joined myself and several other former guests to talk about Constantine, another Something Corporate classic. So Bella, you also joined me for the La 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 episode, and this makes it your third song appearance on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. It's such a joy every time. I'm so happy to talk about music and especially Andrew's music.
Well, thanks so much for coming back. We'll get into it once we get into the song, but this was really good timing to have you here. So the timing worked out great. Thank you for making the time.
Of course.
So I remember from our conversation a few things. I jotted down a few notes. You got into Andrew McMahon back in about 2015 after his self-titled album came out, right?
Yes, it was a mixture of hearing that on the radio, and I actually found Jack's Mannequin and Something Corporate online and then listened to them and then listened to his solo stuff, and I was like, oh, I've heard some of these songs on the radio before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you got to go back and listen to it all three
Yes, I did.
projects, which was quite an advantage
Oh,
to
I
have
got
all that.
spoiled. I
Yeah.
was spoiled for sure. To have that many albums to listen to, that is so nice. To this day, I love a good, long, consistent discography, and I think
Uh-huh.
it's because of him.
Nice. 2 years ago, Bella, when we talked about La La La, which was before the Constantine episode, and then a few weeks later you joined me for Constantine, one or both of those times, you said, when I'm ready to talk about this song we're talking about today, to let you know. Well, I'm ready because, again, it's Something Corporate Fall. It was perfect timing. I thought this was a great track to end it on, more of a deeper cut for sure.
hmm
But when I reached out to you, you were like, sure, let's do it. This song was with me from the very beginning of my Something Corporate fandom. This was one of the originals to me. In fact, I still have that original MP3 on my hard drive. It's transferred among several hard drives by now at this point, but it was one of the MP3s I downloaded as soon as I got home from Warped Tour 2002 in August.
Wow.
It's been on my hard drive for 21 years now. Being new to the fandom at the time for Something Corporate, I didn't know where all these songs fit. So like I knew Leaving Through the Window had just come out, and
hmm
then there were these other songs, and I was like, and I eventually I figured out that some of these songs were not on that album. What I would do with these MP3s is I would piece them together. Like I'd look at it, I'd find a track list online. You
hmm
could back then, just like you can today, and I'd look at it and I'd be like, okay, this song is not on there. Where does this song fit? So I put it in a folder called Demos, and that's where it stayed, because as far as I knew at the time, Leaving Through the Window was all they had done. Similar to Wait, this is another Something Corporate song that was re-recorded around 2010. The song we're talking about today is Letters to Noelle. The band is, of course, Something Corporate, and the song was originally, I found out much later, track 2 on the Galaxy Sessions, which was recorded in 2001. Then it was re-recorded sometime around 2010 for the Played in Space Greatest Hits compilation, and in the last couple of years, it was finally added to Spotify. I didn't know this re-recording existed until it was added to Spotify these last couple of years.
Wow.
For most of its life, most of my life, I've considered Letters to Noelle that original demo version. In fact, I bought Played in Space on CD a couple of years ago, used,
hmm
and I assumed that Letters to Noelle would be on there because that's where it lands on Spotify. It's part of
Right.
Played in Space. But it's not on the CD.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I think I did know that. I do
Yeah.
have that CD somewhere
Uh-huh.
in my house. And yeah, I remember being confused by that as well. I found it on YouTube when I first got
Yeah.
into Andrew. I
Mm-hmm.
I used YouTube a lot back then to look for demos and stuff, and the version that I found had the Played in Space album cover on it, like the thumbnail was on there. So And
Yep.
then I listened to it and I was like, okay, this is obviously more recent.
Hmm.
And I looked it up and I listened to the original and I was very confused as to why it was not on Spotify. And yeah, it was so recently added and you can tell on Spotify because it has a tiny amount of plays, like
Oh, does
streams.
it? I didn't even realize that.
It has like, I don't know, like not even 10K, I don't know, like a tiny amount compared to everything else.
Yeah.
It had to have been within the past 2 years it was added. It
Hmm.
was very recent.
Yep.
And
That
I
sounds right. It was since I've started this podcast. I know that because it wasn't there when I started this podcast, and at some point it appeared, and somehow I found. I think somebody. I'm in a Facebook group for Andrew fans, and I think somebody posted there. That's how I found out.
I ripped the entire Ready Break and Galaxy sessions onto my computer, and
Yep.
that was the only way I would listen to that song, which means that I didn't listen to it often at all.
Same.
I mean, I think it's one of those songs by him that you rediscover every half a year, and then you're like, oh my god, this song is amazing. You listen to it like 10 times in a row, and then you kind of accidentally forget about it again.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about it when it's not part of a collection
Hmm.
that you're streaming, especially because that's how we consume music for the most part nowadays.
Yeah.
And if it's not accessible by our phones or a computer, well, on a computer with everything else that you're listening to,
Hmm.
then you have to go out of your way to go play it. I do that with Weezer demos sometimes. I'll be
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna go listen to this random Weezer demo. I have a playlist called Things I Can't Find Anywhere Else.
Yeah.
But like, how often am I gonna go listen to that specific playlist?
Yeah.
So obviously, a Weezer song on an album would get my ear more often. So
Yeah, because it's right there, and it's say what you want about Spotify, it's conveniency. Like it's
yeah,
it's right there.
it's almost too convenient. Like it's
Yeah.
just open source. Like I have everything here. So why am I going to go over there for something?
Trust me, I feel that as somebody who listens to like 500 new albums a year, it's overwhelming to see everything there. But I'm very happy about it. Like I feel very blessed to be born in the time that I was because
Hmm.
I hear you say what you had to do at Warp Tour to get this song, and I'm like,
Yeah.
my God! First of all, I wasn't even born yet. My
Yep.
mother was pregnant with me when you were doing that.
Wow.
Second of all, it's like a foreign world to me, and
Uh huh.
but I think it's also cool in the way that it took a lot of dedication, and
It
it
did.
took
You had to go out of
time.
your way. Yeah, you had to work for it. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way. You
yeah,
had
you did.
I could have gone straight to the CD store and paid my 12 or $15 for the CD,
Hmm.
but I did make the decision to go. Because that is what we did. Just like we stream music nowadays, you're like, well, I want to hear it first. I want to hear what it sounds like. So you download everything that you could possibly find by them. Just like nowadays, you go listen to it, and if you like it well enough and you want to have it in your collection, you could buy a physical copy,
Hmm.
but you can collect it. But the problem with MP3s, especially with a band like Something Corporate, who had all these demos and non-studio tracks and things, whatever you want to call them, things that weren't recorded in a major studio like Leaving Through the Window and North were.
Hmm.
You had to go back and kind of collect those if you knew about them. If you didn't, you would just type Something Corporate in, and then these random tracks would appear, like
Yeah.
Plucked and Caldecott Tunnel and Ben
Oh,
Franklin's Kite and things like that. Like there's just
classics.
yeah, and all classics, and I didn't know where they all came from, so I was like, all right, demos, I guess. So, but the whole discovery thing was really exciting, and it still can be because, like we
Hmm.
said, not everything is on streaming, so
Yeah.
not everything's on Spotify. So sometimes we do have to go out and we're like, oh my gosh, there's this thing that exists that's
Yeah.
only on YouTube, or you have to go find somewhere.
I
So,
totally love doing that. I
hmm.
loved doing that with Something Corporate, and to this day, I'm content if they never put Ready Break and stuff like that on Spotify because it was such a joy, finding it myself online and being like, oh,
Hmm.
like especially when you get into a band and you're just listening to their discography, not really looking up much yet, and you're like, you think
Right.
that you've exhausted their discography, and then it's like, no, wait, there's more.
There's
Like,
more.
there's more. It's
Yeah.
like it's exciting.
You said earlier that this is something that you would get into, listen to a lot, and then you just kind of either forget about it or kind of, because it wasn't part of a collection,
Yeah.
it wouldn't get as many listens from you. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm very much an album person. So,
Oh, I hear you.
especially with Andrew, I love the experience of listening to his albums front to back. And
Hmm.
but what's weird is, there were other songs, Forget December and Wait, that I latched onto and listened to a lot because they were on Spotify, and I just had them in my Andrew Master playlist, as I'm sure we all have.
We do. Yeah, I think we do.
I couldn't listen to it because it wasn't part of those songs.
Yeah, I hear you. For the same reason, same here. I've listened to it a lot lately, and I've had a chance to listen to both, or I've taken the opportunity to listen to both versions a lot lately. Before it came to streaming, yeah, I wasn't listening to it regularly, so it just wasn't in my consciousness. So,
Hmm.
from my understanding, the Galaxy Sessions, and you may know, if you know anything about this, let me know, because there's a few things here that in my research that I cannot confirm. They're just kind of guesses or speculation based on the research I did. So, like, for one, I think the Galaxy Sessions were recorded at the Galaxy Theater.
That's what I've heard.
Ready Break was recorded at least part at the Galaxy Theater. So I think I've just assumed, or maybe I read somewhere that because the Galaxy Theater and they're called the Galaxy Sessions, that they go together.
Hmm.
But my understanding is that the album got scrapped, so they were recording these songs and then they just decided to not use some of them. Now, some of them did live on in other ways, as we know.
Hmm.
Eventually, Wait and Letters to Noel were recorded for Played in Space. The best info I can find online about production is that the band self-produced the album, but I don't even know that because I don't know if they were working with their producer Jim Wirt yet. I don't know if it was the guy at the Galaxy that funded their first album that helped produce. I don't know if they had a friend in the studio producing. I think it's just called self-produced,
Yeah.
but I have no way to verify that.
Yeah.
The lineup for Something Corporate at the time, of course, included Andrew and Josh and Clutch and Brian. What I don't know is the rhythm guitarist was either William Tell, who would have been new to the band at the time, or it was Ruben Hernandez, who was
Ah.
the guitarist who left. So I don't know which one, if either, was on the track, actually.
Ah. I kind of assumed it was William Tell, but
Hmm.
it could be somebody else entirely. It could be nobody. It could just be
Yeah,
one of the others with the guitar. Yeah, I don't know.
that's the tricky thing about these tracks, that it's the line. There's no liner notes for these,
Yes. Yeah.
for some of this stuff. I'm just making some guesses and assumptions and trying to put it together. But I do want to apologize to people who listen. I think I may have called Ruben Hernandez Richard Hernandez in one episode. I was looking at my notes and I had it noted as Richard. I was like, that doesn't sound right. So I went out to Wikipedia. I was like, no, their original guitarist was Ruben Hernandez. I don't know. In 2010, I can guarantee that neither Ruben nor William were on the re-recording of Letters to Noel, because do you know who the guitarist was at the time, Bella? Later era guitarist?
I actually don't.
So it's Bobby Raw Anderson. He
Oh,
took
yes.
over.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
he took over in Something Corporate, right? And he's the one that we all know now as the guitarist of Jack's Mannequin and the guitarist of Angel Pan in the Wilderness when they tour.
Yes.
So
Okay. I totally forgot that he was contributing to that at that time. Yeah.
when they announced the Something Corporate reunion show for When We Were Young, when they announced that 9 months ago or whatever, I did wonder if Bobby would be playing guitar, because he was in the band for their last couple of years of touring and their last full reunion tour. But William Tell does come back for like their one-off reunions, and it has been confirmed several times now that he will be the one playing this weekend at the festival and at the sideshow in Las Vegas.
That's
Yeah,
exciting.
because I'm aware that Bobby was in the band at the time that they did those re-recordings. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like Bobby's
Yeah.
style playing on that.
Yeah.
Versus the demo version, or whatever you want to call it, Galaxy Sessions version, it's more of an acoustic-y guitar. And then on the newer, by the way, it may be Josh Partington
Right.
playing that part of the guitar too. But I do feel like the re-recording of Letters to Noel and of Wait, which I've talked about before on the show, I feel like they could have fit well into the Jack's Mannequin kind of style as well.
Mhm.
But it makes sense because that's what Andrew and Bobby were doing at the time. So,
I totally see that. I would say that they sound like Andrew McMahon songs. They don't particularly sound like something corporate song. The re-recordings, at least, they don't particularly
hmm
sound. You know, they don't have that kind of explosive type chorus and
hmm
just like general pop punky sound to them. They have an Andrew McMahon sound to them. Like they very much sound like his songs,
hmm
which is fine. Like it's I really love the re-recordings of both Wait and Letters to Noel. They're a different take and they're a more mature take on,
for
songs that
sure.
he wrote when he was my age and younger.
So you definitely can hear a difference. Do you have a preference in which version that you like better?
I absolutely prefer the re-recordings. Yeah.
I do too.
I like how the original of Letters to Noel, it's rough around the edges. I mean, I think I like that about that. I think it's really charming, and I like that it's more of like a traditional kind of piano ballad, I would say, and then it just has this like almost like explosive in your face chorus.
hmm Yeah, more of a rock chorus. I
Yeah,
agree.
the like general production and stuff on the re-recording, it's just so like light and breezy and just like matches the song so well. And
Uh huh.
something that I wrote down here to say was that I wanted to say that I feel like it's kind of one of his more cryptic songs lyrically,
hmm
even though it's quite descriptive and it paints a mental image in your head. The re-recording really highlights that because it doesn't sound as angsty, and I think in
Okay.
the original, it's kind of easy to hear the angst in his voice and be like, oh, so it's like a breakup song.
Yeah, he sounds like a teenager singing it, and so I think that adds to the angst. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, but in the re-recording, I mean, his voice matured so much and just
Yeah.
he got so much control over it, and
Yep.
it's so melodic and just pretty, and that kind of contributes to like the like kind of uncleared air feeling that the song has. Like that's kind of how I describe it. It's not like a black and white breakup. I feel like it's kind of like a gray middle ground of like
Hmm.
something like some sort of breakup, and the original feels more straightforward, angsty post breakup song. Even though I'm pretty sure the lyrics are the same, I don't think the lyrics changed.
I don't think they did either because I have only one set of lyrics here, and hopefully I have them right. Yeah, I think they're the same. But you're absolutely right that you get this teenage angsty singing with a little bit rougher edges of all the instruments.
Hmm.
And I feel like the production in the newer one, the edges were smoothed out.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to, in general, when it comes to songs that sound pretty close to the same but have a higher production value, I'll just put it that way, and I know that's an opinion, not a fact. Maybe it is a fact. I don't know, but I feel like there's a higher production value.
Hmm.
I just tend to prefer that higher production value
Yeah.
versus the lo-fi rougher version. And I know there's a lot of people who would feel the opposite about
Yeah.
that.
I mean, I would definitely say that it varies. For me personally,
hmm
there are some artists and bands that I prefer their lo-fi and like, stripped back production and just like and straightforward production. Like
hmm
I always think about like this is kind of an out there example to use. Like I don't know how many Andrew McMahon fans are gonna get this, but like I think about the first album by PJ Harvey, which was
Okay.
produced by Steve Albini, and his production is so straightforward, literally just recording, like just set up the mics and just record, just everybody play, and it's just gonna record. And that production in some cases works so well with some artists, and
hmm
but other artists I feel like they shine more with more of a kind of glossy, like lighter and touched up production. And
hmm
I feel that way about Andrew when it comes to like his poppier songs,
hmm
but when it comes to, maybe like his more just piano ballads, I think of something corporate era song like Globes and Maps. Like stripped back, great. Like it works perfectly for him. The more
Hmm.
rockier, the more poppier, then I think the production should be kind of glossy, kind of
Hmm.
fitting for a pop artist, I would say, I guess.
The guy who I think produced the newer version is Chuck Reed, and I only think that because in the liner notes for Played in Space, again, Letters to Noel isn't listed there because it's not on the CD.
Hmm.
But anybody who has the vinyl record, I don't know if Letters to Noel is on there. I don't think it is either. But Chuck Reed's listed as a producer on the Wait re-record, so I'm gonna assume Chuck Reed is the producer on this track. And I don't know too much about Chuck Reed. I had mentioned him on the Wait episode, but what he's done, some things he's done. But anyway, this is the only time I know of that Andrew McMahon has worked with Chuck Reed.
Oh, interesting. Do you, off the top of your head, do you know who else he produced for?
I don't remember. Yeah, if you, I could look. I could look real quick if you want. Okay, he's been in the music business since 1980.
Wow.
He did form a friendship. Oh, this is interesting to mention. I guess he knew the band in their early days. Andrew mentioned that I think on a live stream that they were friendly with him. He was already in the business. I thought it was interesting that he came back like a decade after they got started to produce some of their songs,
Yeah, that's
specifically their
cool.
re-recordings. Yeah, he has worked with No Doubt, Sting, All American
Wow.
Rejects. So I'm sure there's a lot more, but
That gives me a pretty good idea of just the poppy
yeah.
punk types that,
So
and
like
that makes
pop
sense.
rock and pop punk, yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense because I obviously don't know enough about him to form an opinion on his production, but I think Wait, Letters to Noel, if he is the one that produced that song, they go hand in hand to me. Like they
Hmm.
feel like sister songs to me, and I
I
think
agree.
that's totally because not only because they are right next to each other on the track list of Played in
Hmm.
Space, but because of the production. I think there's just like this kinship between Wait and Letters to Noel.
Yeah, I honestly didn't expect to talk that much about weight as we have, but you're right. They do feel similar, but I think it has a lot to do with that production because
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that about the quote unquote demo version of Weight.
Yeah, I
I don't
wouldn't
think it
either.
sounded like
Yeah.
Letters to Noel. I think the production made them sound like they
Hmm.
belong together, which is when you're making an album, that's probably what a good producer is expected to do
Yeah,
by a
and
lot of artists anyway. Maybe not all, but
yeah, and I mean lyrically they go well together, I would say.
I agree.
They match up.
Did you have a chance to watch the live video I sent you of this song, Letters to Noel?
I have not seen that in years. I totally remember watching that when I was like 12 and I was like, "Oh
Okay.
my gosh, that just brings back." And there's a comment on that video that says, "I wish they would perform at my birthday party." And I totally remember having that thought when I was younger.
I know. I thought that comment was. I did see that comment too. So, for context for all the listeners, so this video I sent Bella was of Blaine's 21st birthday party, and that's what the video is called. And there's a couple of them out there. One is the full version of Letters to Noel being performed by something corporate, apparently at Blaine's 21st birthday party. And there's comments by like Blaine and his friends and other people like, "How
Mhm.
did you get this?" And Blaine's just like, "We recorded it at my house at my birthday party." And I'm like, "Who is this Blaine? Like,
Right?
he needs to come on the show like and
He
talk about
does.
this."
Blaine, if
Yeah,
you're
he's
out there, come on.
yeah, like let's hear the story of how that was February 2001. And again, I gleaned all this information from reading these comments. So I'm taking all these people's words for it. So it was 2001, but I think the video was posted like 2007, but still pretty early on for YouTube videos. What I find interesting is that someone had the foresight when this band was playing in basements to record their entire set with a
Right.
video camera. When I was in high school, which was not very long before that year, I also had friends in bands, and we would video record them with our, probably not VHS. Maybe it was like 8 millimeter or like mini DV cams or
Mhm.
whatever I don't know, whatever the technology was at that point. I don't.
Yeah.
It's probably VHS. It might have been VHS. So we would record our friends' bands, and so I just tried to put myself in that perspective. Like, wow, what if my best friend's band, and they still play music to this day together, just for fun. What if they had blown up that like following year? and that I have this video of them playing in
Mhm.
someone's backyard or in someone's basement.
Mhm.
And so I guess I could see how easily that might happen, but they recorded the almost the entire set. In the comments he says, or someone said, we got the first 8 songs, but then the camera battery died or something like
Mhm.
that. So they didn't get the last 3 songs. But did you think that version that they played at Blaine's 21st birthday, did you think it sounded a lot like the demo version?
Yes and no. I almost think that birthday party version sounded a little bit better, I would say. Like
Oh, wow.
I don't know why I would say that, but maybe
Hmm.
it's just seeing them that made me feel that way.
Yeah, almost like somebody captured a piece of magic.
For sure. Like it
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely strange to, see a video recorded at somebody's birthday party, 21st birthday party, 20 plus years ago, and
20 plus years ago. Yeah.
they
Crazy.
were so small. I mean, they were so young. My age, which is
Yeah.
young, and
Yeah.
you can always tell how old a something corporate video is by Andrew's hair.
That's hilarious. You
that's
can.
that's what I always say. Like you can always tell when his hair looks like how it did in that video, you're like, this is an old video. This
It's the
is
shaggy haired Andrew. Yep.
yeah, this is prehistoric.
Yeah, they look like they're in high school, but if I'm going by graduation years that I know of, I think they were all just graduated at the time, but it was pretty close.
Yeah,
Like they were a year or 2 or 3 out of high school.
young, but like just so much talent. Like just not even in this extravagant like standing ovation way. Just in like, my God, these kids are just talented. Like they
Yeah.
just got something, and the chemistry too between them really shines. And I am a firm believer that the chemistry in a band, whether it's good or bad chemistry, makes their music. Like if a band has really good chemistry or even really bad chemistry, as we've seen in history, like Fleetwood Mac, Rumors, like
True.
if a band has any sort of extreme chemistry, the music is almost always very good.
Hmm.
They're in tune to each other, and I totally got that vibe watching that performance, that birthday party performance. It just seemed like genuine friends playing music together, and yeah, it's just awesome.
I love the fact that everybody's being quiet while they're playing.
Mhm.
Like how cool is that?
That's
So
so cool.
they're just hanging. I don't know how many people were there. Maybe there were only 5 people. I have no idea. Sorry, Blaine. Maybe the house party was packed. Maybe it was 5. I don't know. But it seems like there must have been a good amount of people there for a full band to be playing, right?
Yeah.
I would assume. But it's quiet enough so you can hear the band really well.
Yeah,
The
it's
sound is pretty good for an old video recording.
Yeah, 100%. It's quiet, even though, like you said, who knows how many people were there, but
Yeah.
regardless, the bunch of, 21-year-olds probably drinking a lot, and just
Yeah.
like, and yet they are just quiet. They are just letting this happen, and that's amazing.
It's pretty wholesome. I like
Yeah.
that. The craziest thing about this video to me of Letters to Noel specifically is that it's the only time I know of, I can find any evidence of, that they have ever played it to a live audience. Can you believe that?
Yes, that is the only reason why I've seen that video. Like,
Uh
I'm
huh.
sure to like outsiders, it would be if you said, "Oh, I watched this video of this song being
Check this out.
performed."
This so great, and they'd
And
be like, "What's a big deal?
yeah,
It's a high school kids playing a song at a party."
at a
Like,
party,
yeah,
yeah. But like, it's our only evidence of that song being played live. Like so it's special, and honestly, it's the perfect setting for that song to be played. I feel like it's intimate, and it works.
it's not like this. Like, not for most of us. It's not a hard rocking song. It's just like people apparently hanging around listening to this nice song
Mhm.
by these guys who, like you said, have obviously have great chemistry, are getting along well, are playing. They play really well together
Mhm.
together for 5 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. The only listing on Setlist FM for this song is when he did it on his Instagram live stream in April 2020, which I'll
Ah.
link. I'll link both these videos in the show notes, but you can't really call that live in front of a
Yeah.
live audience, right? So
Yeah.
that's different. Yeah, so that's what's listed. Now, I'm not going to be the one to add Blaine's 21st birthday to Setlist FM because I wasn't there, and I don't know the venue and I don't know the exact date and all that. So that'll have to be left to someone who was actually there. So someone at Blaine's party, you have a job now. Just
Yeah.
go ahead and add that with the whole set list for me, okay?
Yeah, do that.
Uh, yeah. When you get a chance. Come on, it's been 22 years. A couple of years ago in the Wait episode that I've referenced already. So I said that I would travel just about anywhere in the United States if something corporate got back together. So that's what I'm doing this weekend. I'm so excited. They're playing on Friday night at the House of Blues, which there's a pretty good chance that anybody listening to this will be listening to it after that already happens. But we're just a few days before that right now when we're recording this because I never got to see something corporate in 2010 when they reunited.
Oh, wow.
You just started listening to Andrew in 2015, so
Yeah.
you wouldn't have been there either
No.
for the Something Corporate
No,
days.
I was 7, so yeah, probably
Yeah,
not.
probably not. Like, yeah. I can't remember what you said in the last. Have you seen Andrew McMahon live or no?
I have, and I did meet him. Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was meant to see him live last year, but whole chain of events, I wasn't able to go unfortunately, but
Oh, sorry to hear that.
I totally intend on going in the future whenever I
Hmm.
can, because it's always a joy, even though I've only done it once. But yeah, that was an amazing concert. I will repeat myself in saying that Andrew McMahon fans are so, so nice. I was like a meek little 14-year-old when I went to that concert. And I'm short. I'm 5 foot, so
Hmm.
and it was a flat floor, so I was kind of struggling,
That's
but
tough.
I met this woman who had been a fan of Andrew for, like 15 years, and
Hmm.
she was like 30, but she was about my height, and she gave me so many tips about what to do at a concert when you're short. And we talked about Andrew, and it was such a sweet experience for me, especially because it really showed me that it doesn't matter how old you are, you can totally bond about music, especially Andrew's music. Does not matter the age between you and the other person. Like, you can just go on forever with somebody, and it was really nice.
I definitely agree with you on the age thing. So we know this song was written while Andrew was in high school because he said that before.
Hmm.
But do you know the story about who this song was written about?
I do not.
He talked about it in his April 1st, 2020 live stream. So I'm going to link that in the show notes along with the birthday party show that we referenced earlier. Yeah, he was in high school. He said they just started playing decent sized shows, which I don't know. I guess that doesn't really fit with the whole like why were they playing in someone's basement? But I guess that could happen, right? If it's a friend of yours. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, they were just starting to play decent sized shows, and his Andrew's cousin hooked him up with this skateboard clothing company. So again, they were, something corporate was becoming a thing, at least locally. I don't know
Hmm.
how big they were getting, but and so he got connected with the skateboard clothing company, and they started sending them free clothes.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and on the box it said Noelle. It was from, she worked for the company, and so she would send him these boxes of free clothes, and Andrew would receive them at his parents' house.
Wow.
And the part of the story I really don't understand is like how he knew her because apparently he knew her also. And
Oh.
so he said he saw so he said he the name her name was on the package so that they would come from her, but they must have had a personal interaction. I don't know if they dated. I don't know any of that. Like you talked about, it kind of sounds like a breakup song. They very well may have had, something,
Hmm.
but I don't know that. But he did mention the live stream, and he mentioned it a little hesitantly that yeah, he had a crush on her and he doesn't like talking about it anymore because he still kind of knows her and she's married now, so it's kind of weird
Yeah.
to say
And
that.
so
But
is
like,
he.
which yeah, which so I completely get like
Yeah.
that's not a conversation you really want to have with people, especially publicly, about past crushes and
Yeah.
loves and things like that when you're married. But yeah, so she was this person he knew through the skateboard clothing company who would like kind of hook them up with free clothes. And I don't know if there were any actual literal letters to Noel or if this song is the letters to Noel, like the
Right.
verses maybe. So I found that pretty cool. That story. I was glad that Andrew shared that in the live stream a few years back because looking back, there's really no other information about
No.
this song online. So that was my one reference for the songwriting behind this song. But it was a pretty good nugget because
Yeah.
if you go back and watch that, he talks about it for like a minute or two
Oh, wow.
before he plays the song on that live stream. So I highly recommend it. But it sounds like Noelle was the muse for this song. But the lyrics, I don't know, the lyrics are, and we're going to talk about these lyrics in a little bit here. It seems like there's more to them
Yeah.
than, that story that story he told on the live
Yeah.
stream. So it definitely feels like there's more behind it. So it almost makes me wonder, and I know a lot of artists do this, where they take one thing from one part of their life and then other things from other parts of their life and kind of package it all together
Mhm.
to with the words that sound good together. And so I don't know if all these feelings were about Noel specifically or if they were two separate things. As someone who appreciates lyrics, I'd like to think that they were all one thing, but
Right.
I really don't. I really don't know that. So I don't
Yeah.
know how well he knew her. But before we get onto lyrics, let's talk a little bit about the sound of the song. We've already touched a lot on this, but I want to make reference to a '90s band that
Mhm.
I guess you could sort of say I'm kind of sort of into, but I'll explain. I sent you a couple links to listen to these tracks, Bella,
Yes.
and it's this particular '90s band, and sometimes it may be a stretch, but sometimes I try to make these connections when I'm listening to these songs, and I'm like, I don't want to say it sounds like that, but when I have a direct line, like when Andrew McMahon and Josh Partington, both songwriters for this band, have specifically stated in the past year that this band is one of their influences, I got to kind of look at that and be like, okay, like how does that fit?
Yeah.
And this song seemed to be the right place to bring that up. So I've never
Yes.
mentioned this particular band on the show, but before I reveal to the listeners who that band is that I'm referencing, in general, do you hear any similarities or am I reaching here?
I totally heard it with that first song you sent, Anna Begins, I think it was called.
Yeah, Anna Begins. Yep.
Yes, I totally heard that. Not only in the lyrics, but just the structure of the song. I totally heard a similarity, and it's not often I can confidently say, oh, this song definitely sounds like it inspired this song, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I totally feel that way. I don't know if I ever would have made that connection had you not said that because, yeah, I've never listened to an album by Counting Crows, and I'm about to show my age here by saying that my biggest impression of that band is the Shrek soundtrack. Um,
Of course. No, there's nothing wrong with that. It makes perfect sense.
but I want to listen to that album. I've actually had the album written down for like a year to listen to, and I've got a very, very long list of albums, so it'll take me a while, but I'm going to prioritize
Yeah.
it now because I totally heard influence in that, and it was very interesting to me. The lyrics and, like I said, the structure of the song, the progression of the song. I definitely heard Letters to Noel in it for sure.
Well, thanks for saying so. I thought I found something there. So I sent you Perfect Blue Buildings and Anna Begins. They're
Hmm.
both songs off of their first album, August and Everything After. And that album came out in 1993. So again, doing the math, I,
Yeah.
I think Andrew would have been in sixth grade at the time. But as you've probably experienced as well as I have, it's like that music we listen to when we're in middle and high school is so our formative years, if you will,
Yeah.
is so influential on the rest of our lives.
Yes.
Andrew's mentioned another artist that we wouldn't always turn right to when we're thinking about influences on him was like Tom Petty.
Hmm.
Well, Tom Petty's Wildflowers came out the very next year, or maybe it was the same year. But Josh Partington, I believe, mentioned it on my on this very podcast. He called out. He's like, when I asked him what they were listening to, what influenced them. Counting Crows is a band he said that the whole band was into.
Yeah.
So when I was listening to the re-recording of this song specifically now, what it really was for me that made me go back and listen to August and Everything After was the way Andrew was singing the lyrics.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to
Yeah.
attempt it because I'm not a singer, and I want to try to mimic Andrew's great vocals here. But so I'm going to not do that. But the way he sings it, his cadence or something, his
Hmm.
I don't know how else to describe it. I could totally totally hear Adam Duritz of the Counting Crows singing these words
Yeah.
in this exact way.
Yeah.
It's not the same song. It's not just like it or anything,
Yeah.
but it definitely sounds influenced, like that they were trying to do a song like the music that they enjoyed, and that
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. What do you think? I see sometimes I think some people don't want to hear their favorite band compared to a band they either don't like or wouldn't expect to have their music compared to. And
Right.
so, like, if you're like a hardcore like pop punk, I'm going to When We Were Young Fest this weekend. I want to hear like The Offspring and Blink and Green Day and something corporate because I love the guitars. And I were to say, well, check out this like soft ballad by
Yeah.
Counting Crows. I really think this is what influenced them. I think that there's some people that don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that experience where like you have this band that you love or any artist that you love, and then you hear like, oh, one of our top influences is blank.
Yeah.
Like,
I totally get that. I mean, I can't think of an example, but like I
uh huh,
totally especially listening to different genres over the years and
mm-hmm,
branching out and yeah, I've found some of my favorite bands been like they've been inspired by things that I would have never guessed and I mean, even calling something corporate pop punk is a little bit of a stretch at times.
yeah, it
Um,
is.
I totally get that like it makes sense. Like Counting Crows as influence and just other kind of 90s like soft rock bands or stuff. Like
Right.
to me it makes a lot of sense and there are quite a bit of more pop punk Andrew McMahon fans who yeah, you're probably right would not want to hear that.
Uh
But
huh.
then I feel like there's a lot of us who are kind of like me and don't really listen to straight up pop punk much anymore, but listen to a lot
True.
of songs with strong songwriting and a stripped back maybe piano ballad, maybe just acoustic guitars, whatever. And that is something that I've just always heard in something corporate's music. And I think, like, calling them emo or pop punk, they were definitely in that scene, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost a stretch. And I feel like they could exist in other spaces too. Let me just put it that way. They can exist in a soft rock piano rock space and it would make sense as and
Mm-hmm.
maybe more sense than it makes for them to be in the pop punk scene.
Yeah, I mean, at a festival like that like they're playing at this weekend, they'll be playing their heavy hitters, their
Mhm.
hard rockin' songs, but they could also play with the Gin Blossoms and Counting Crows, and they have
Yes.
played with or he has played with Dashboard Confessional, and they could play like, and they could play a set that doesn't have to include their heavy hitters. So,
When I think of something corporate, at first I don't think of songs like Space, which are, much more heavier and just I honestly think of just more laid back and like kind of a strong chorus, but like I think of more about like Fall. Fall is a good song. Like I think of
yeah.
songs like that and I would take them further away from like the pop punk of like Blink 182 and I would put them more closer to like Death Cab for Cutie, honestly.
Well, that's interesting that you bring up that band because someone just recommended a song of theirs to me this morning, and I listened to. It's a song that either I've never heard before or I heard a long time ago and don't remember it. But I was just listening to a song by Death Cab this afternoon, and that they had recommended to me this morning, and I was like, oh, I really like that song.
I don't think I see much of an overlap, but I feel like if you like Andrew, that you're at least warm to Death Cab for Cutie. Like maybe I'm
That's a
biased.
good way to
Like
put it. Yeah, they might not sound alike, but there's a connection in probably the fandom.
I think even if the sound isn't too similar, it's like the drive behind the bands and like the lyrics and stuff. I would say there's a similarity, and like I said, maybe I'm biased. I am a huge Death Cab for Cutie fan.
I just think that this song, sound wise, it gives all the band members, including Andrew's vocals, it gives them all space to to really let them all shine. All the individual instruments on this track shine, in my opinion. I think it has to do with that production on the second version, in my opinion. That's part of it, but
Yeah.
I just think it's a good song for that. It never goes like too hard, too heavy. It's
Hmm.
just it just lets them all shine
Yeah.
the way they need to and doesn't push it. So
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
the let's talk lyrics. Like a lot of Andrew's songs, these lyrics read like poetry, and we're
Hmm.
we're reading the poetry of a kid in high school. Let's face it. On one hand, I'm surprised that these lyrics were written by an 18-year-old, but on the other hand, I'm like, because I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, but you know what? This wouldn't be surprising opening the notebook of someone that's 18
Yeah.
and being like, these are like great words,
Hmm.
great lyrics by someone who's a teenager and just kind of wrestling with some things and like trying to figure out more about himself
Mhm.
and, exploring either a relationship or his relationships with others. When I thought about that, I was like, yeah, it's really not that surprising. This does sound about right.
Mhm.
So, are there specific lyrics that are why this song has stuck with you for so long?
I feel like honestly, kind of the whole thing is just it's I mean, I'd put it on the same level as Constantine as like just like perfect encapsulation of just being that age, being young and
Mm-hmm.
so many feelings. The whole thing is just something that I just really enjoy. And I will say that the lyric, I emptied out my veins onto a page, set to a scream you just can't gauge, that just kind of sums up a lot of something corporate
Yeah.
songs. That lyric, I love that lyric because it's just like, to me, that's Andrew having a lot of self awareness and like
Mm-hmm.
describing himself and like I really love that lyric and I think that's the one that sticks with me the most, but really the whole song is just like I've always just really loved the lyrics to that song. It was like the first thing that I picked up on when the first time I heard it. I love those lyrics.
I think that was what you just read was the lyrics, some of the lyrics that made me think back to my own high school experience. And
Mhm.
I was never very creative with words. I wished I was. I remember seeing the poetry of my friends and their notebooks, and that's kind of what I hearkened back to. And I'm like, yeah, I could totally see this back in high school. And, my friends wrote song lyrics. They were in band. A lot of my
Yeah.
friends were in bands, and some of them just wrote poetry if they were like me and had no musical talent whatsoever. But I didn't have the words to express it either. But like, that's one of those examples where I could totally see that on someone's note in someone's notebook in high school,
Yeah.
that I emptied out my veins onto a page, set to a scream you just can't gauge. She cannot see what's inside of me. The other one that made me think of the same thing was earlier on in the song. He says, "Years of waiting, nothing fading, emptied out my pen, carved the rest into my hand."
Yeah.
I hate to use that buzzword emo. That it's very easy to go to that word.
Mhm.
It's very easy to just use that word to describe it. I just don't can't think of a better word. It's very emotional. It's very hard on my sleeve
Yeah.
to say, like, I'm emptying out my veins onto a page. It's my blood. I'm basically writing in my blood to
Yeah.
describe this for me, or I'm carving it in my hand. That's how serious I am.
Yeah.
And I don't think Andrew uses those references too much, not as much as other like emo-y pop punk bands of
Right.
that era. But I do appreciate that those uses of it here, because it gives me this visual, like, oh my gosh, this hurts. Like,
Yeah.
this hurts him, and he needs to remember. This is how he remembers,
Yeah. And
by writing it all down and carving it
yeah.
into his hand. And
The visuals in those lyrics, I would say, are just like stellar. Like I listen to that song and I'm seeing, visions of boxes, letters,
uh-huh.
obviously, and
Yep.
with the driveway and stuff. It's just like thinking about all that stuff together. It's like all those things, boxes, the driveway, blah blah blah, whatever he's talking. It's like it's got like this air of finality. Like it's very final in a way, which
So it
is
sounds like a breakup, like you
yes,
pointed out earlier.
yeah. It sounds like a breakup, but as I said, it's also kind of cryptic. It
Mm-hmm.
could be this gray area, this like what if area.
Yeah. Yep.
That's why I said that about the preferring the production and the vocals on the re-recording because that contributes to that feeling of uncertainty and I really like that. I really, really like that about that song because, to some people, like if you read those lyrics, it might seem a little straightforward or it might seem like it, oh, it's obvious what this is about. But I think once you add the production, the vocals, and the instruments, like, it sounds happy. Like the re-recording sounds like a happy song. Like,
Yeah.
like with the production and like twinkling. It's just like it's got this happiness to it that you would read the lyrics and you would be like, "What? Like that doesn't match up. Like this sounds too happy to have these lyrics."
Yeah, they definitely could have gone in a different direction on the production and made it more crunchy or
Mhm.
buzzsaw guitars in the chorus, especially. And even with the piano, it could have been
Yeah.
kind of harder edges, crunchier, and more like a yeah, it could have felt they could have made it feel differently
Yeah.
with those decisions. But yeah, I like the word you use, twinkly, because yeah, there's at times they put that little sound in there
Yeah.
that does kind of give it this optimistic sort of sound in the newer version.
Yeah.
Going back to the lyrics, there are times when I'm reading through it now, kind of thinking about the things that we've talked about so far, and I'm wondering that maybe could be a breakup, but could be he's writing these letters or trying to communicate with her in some way that he has these feelings for her because he did mention that he had a crush on this person, that he's expressing his feelings, but maybe they're not reciprocated.
Yeah.
Maybe they never were, or maybe they were for a short time, and then someone between them moved on,
Yeah, or
either him or her.
with the whole letters thing, it makes me think of something being lost in translation almost like,
Oh yeah,
the idea of saying something and then it's misconstrued or it just falls on completely deaf ears. It makes me think of like a letter getting lost or something and yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if that's what he was going for, but yeah, I think the whole song just has this kind of what if quality to it.
Being this is coloring this experience, the lyrics of the experience, I'm assuming, with my own life, but I do remember what it was like to be dating in that era of 2000, 2001. Hard to believe nowadays, but there was no texting, there was no social media. So it was phones, obviously, but it was also emails. Like we
Hmm.
actually wrote emails to people, friends and family members, and which I know we still do that, but obviously, but it's just a lot more uncommon nowadays
Yes.
for a mode of communication.
Yeah.
And yes, so I thought of that when you said maybe something was lost in translation. I could totally see like, oh hey, Noelle sent us a box today. I'm gonna email her.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna just feel out the vibes here,
Yeah.
and and how that could be misinterpreted,
Yeah.
like any digital text on a on a screen, on any screen that you can think of, could
Hmm.
be misinterpreted. So I like that you said that because that kind of gave me that different perspective on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some heartfelt and emotional and like heartbreaking lyrics in this song, despite the sounds of some of
Hmm.
the instruments. Like the song ends with tied on ribbons in my brain, obsession don't give way to pain. I know that now. And like that final, like,
Uh,
I know that now.
I
It's
love his
yeah,
delivery of that. Even in the
yeah,
re-recording, it's just, oh my God. It's got this melancholy quality to it and just this kind of exasperation almost. And it's
mm-hmm,
like, I just absolutely love it. And although I like all of his vocals, I think the angst in the original version, like I said, it's like it just does not. I think the his better vocals in the re-recording just fit the song much better. Like it just works so much better, and it really helps like convey his feelings and emotions and yeah, that delivery is just stellar. Like I love that delivery of that
yeah.
line.
Yeah, his voice, like we talked about, his voice was definitely different in the early 2000s than it was by 2010, and is now actually. His
Yeah.
voice has changed more now too, so he definitely sings differently, and so we get kind of a different perspective depending on what his voice sounded like in the two
Mhm.
versions, which is pretty cool with this one.
Yeah.
It definitely makes me wish that they would take more of those something corporate older songs and re-record them, but I know that's very unlikely. So
Come on, Andrew. We need you to pull a Taylor Swift and start re-recording your old
exactly.
stuff.
Yeah, that re-record the old. Now I don't necessarily need the North and Living Through the Window, but like the songs that never had a chance in a
Yeah.
proper studio. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
would be cool.
it would be really cool if like they just re-recorded like Ready Break for no reason. Like they just like
Yeah,
dropped that on us. Like here, we did this. That would actually
yeah.
be really cool. Like
That would be it'd be a good surprise. Like if they told fans they were doing it, I feel like it would be too much build up.
yeah,
If they just dropped it, like you said, I think that would be a great way to do it.
especially cuz
Just putting that out in the universe.
yeah, yeah. Andrew, if you're listening, nudge nudge. But
Yeah.
yeah, especially because, that's uh them re-recording that album would really only mean something to us, like diehards, like really big fans. So
Right.
it would make the most sense to just like kind of drop that overnight and be like, hey, look at this, and just a treat for us.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold my breath, but it would be really cool. It'd be like we talked about with the vocals to hear a different take.
Do you have a favorite part of the song, like either lyric wise or a favorite thing about the song?
Honestly, I love the beginning and the ending. If that sounds weird, I don't know, but I just love the way it starts and I love the way it
Mm-hmm.
ends.
Yeah, it's got that little drum beat at the beginning, which,
Mhm.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
It feels complete. Like it feels like a complete song. I think that's why I'm still perplexed by it just being hard to find for the past like before it was on streaming services. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm that's why I'm still perplexed by it because it feels like a very full song. Like it does not feel just like a re-record of a rough demo. Like I mean it feels like a song. Like it totally feels complete and linear and it makes sense and it feels like kind of a storybook reading or listening to that song. It's just
Oh, it does. I
yeah,
like the way you put that. It really does.
it feels like a story. Like it has a beginning and a middle and an end, but the beginning and the end are very strong.
Something we didn't talk about, but it's I there's a part that always sticks out for me, and it's these lyrics in the chorus, and I don't know why because I have no idea what they mean, and I'm not going to try to interpret them here. But he says, "You pray for silence, step into my quiet violence."
Mhm.
I don't know what that means,
Yeah,
but I love the way it sounds.
me too. I love the way that
Yeah, and the
sounds.
way he sings it,
Yeah.
oh, it gets me like my quiet violence. It's like, ooh, I love the way those words sound together.
Yeah, like even if we don't necessarily know what that means, like the way he sings it, I have no doubt he knows what it means. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
I am pretty confident I am not going to hear this song live this weekend.
no,
What do you
yeah,
think?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, don't
I,
hold your
I don't
breath,
think we're
but
going that. I don't think we're going that deep, even at the sideshow, because they're doing that sideshow at the House of Blues on Friday night, where they're playing for 90 minutes. But I just don't see them going this deep into the catalog, unfortunately.
I
But
mean, maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe
I'd
you'll,
love to be proven wrong.
yeah, maybe you'll stand there, you'll hear those opening notes, and you fall to your knees. You're like, oh my god, can't believe it.
Can't believe it. They played that song. Yeah, so anybody listening, they are live streaming the show Friday night, October 20th. So if you're listening to this episode between Friday, October 20th, and let's say Friday, October 27th, 2023, then you can buy the live stream. It's available for 7 days. Believe it or not, I'm going to buy it. I'll be at the show because I want to watch it afterward
Yeah,
again. I want to see what I experienced.
yeah.
I've been able to do that a couple times where they live stream the show I'm actually at. I don't know. There's nothing cooler than me to go into a concert because that's the coolest thing in and of itself.
Mhm.
But then you get to rewatch it in studio quality afterward.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, and it's like it takes the pressure off of like feeling, oh, I should record this part on my
Uh
phone.
huh.
This is my favorite song. I should record some of it. Like it takes the
Exactly.
pressure off of that, and you don't even have to worry about that because
No.
when I go to a concert, I do want to record some parts. I know that's
Hmm.
a big debate, like put your phone down and blah blah blah, but. I want to record some of my favorite songs. I recorded La La
Yeah.
La. Like
I hear you.
I want
Yeah.
to see that, and if it was being recorded by a camera crew or whatever, then I wouldn't even touch my phone because I wouldn't have to, and I would not hesitate to buy the footage of that because I'd want to see it.
I wish there was a way to listen to it long term, but I know it's only 7 days, but I will watch and listen to it at least once just to regain that experience. But
Hmm.
you're right. It's when I take video at a show, what's funny is it's to remember what that looked like and sounded like, and
Hmm.
I'm going to be able to do that with this live stream. So
Yeah,
that's what's so cool about having that.
it's awesome.
I'm going to reference one more 90s band, and I'm gonna maybe throw a curveball at you. Maybe not. Maybe you're really familiar with this song, but are you familiar with the song Teenage Dirtbag by
Of
Wheatus?
course, yes, I am.
Okay. I'm
Yes,
pretty sure that's made its way into everybody's consciousness, whether they want it to or not.
yeah,
It's just one of those songs that just is out there still to this day.
yeah.
And it's kind of a weird song. It was even when it came out, but it's a great song. I love this song. It's one of these bands that I don't know all their material very well, but I know that song very well.
Hmm.
And you'd think that's the type of band that I would go and dig into their catalog real deep. I only did that one time. I listened to all their albums. Again, weird. I enjoyed them. I'm not kind of like Death Cab for Cutie. It's like I've listened to all their stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's this kind of stuff I like. But then I don't go back to them. I don't know why.
That's totally fair. I think a lot of people who are really heavily into music are like that. I mean, I can think of so many bands and artists that I like listen to their albums, whether all of them or maybe just the more popular ones. And I'm like, oh my god, I enjoyed this so much. I loved it, but I don't revisit it often. And
Often enough to really get familiar with it.
it's weird. I mean, even if you really enjoy something, sometimes it just doesn't have that replay value for you. Like, it just,
Yeah.
especially if it's not a super catchy band, maybe a band that doesn't focus on a lot of hooks and bombastic choruses, maybe it's just, it can be easy for it to kind of fade from your mind, even though you really enjoyed it. So I get that.
Do you know why I'm bringing this song up?
I'm
Is
curious.
the first words of the song, her name is Noelle.
Ah, yes. I see.
Yeah, it's the only other song in the world. I'm sure there's others. It's the only other song I know that I can think of without looking it up that has the name Noel in it. That is not a Christmas song, and I
Yes.
know that's Noel in a very different context with a different spelling. But the name Noel is in a girl. What's a super coincidence here is the song Wheatus's Teenage Dirtbag was released right about the same time as Andrew would have written it, or one. I don't know which one was first.
Mhm.
If Andrew wrote Letters to Noel in high school, then he wrote that before this song came out because this
Mhm.
came out in I believe June 2000. But man, this song again just like lives in my brain, whether I want it to or not. I do like it. But another coincidence is that Wheatus re-recorded this song in 2020, and they re-recorded their song for a different reason though. They did it because they didn't have their original masters, and it
Right.
wasn't like this Taylor Swift like reclaiming
Yeah.
their material. It was no, we just don't have the original
Yeah.
recordings and we want them, so we're just going to recreate it note for note.
Mhm.
And they did a good job. So if you listen to them back to back, they're pretty. You can tell there's a difference, but they're pretty similar,
Oh, that's
which
awesome.
was really impressive with the different sounds they have going on. It's to me that's all very impressive when an artist can re-record music and it can sound pretty much the same
Yeah. Yeah, for
because
sure.
so much changes in technology and instruments and voices in 20 years. And
Definitely.
but I just thought that was some fun coincidences.
I too can't name another song that has Noel like off the top of my head. I cannot. And
Yeah.
even when I looked up this song on Spotify to listen to it
Hmm.
before we talked, I was kind of looking around and I was like, my God, there's not even many artists who go by the name Noel. I was just thinking, like, man, I guess that name is more uncommon than I thought. It's a very pretty name. Like,
Yeah,
I,
it is. I can see why he used it, even if she was simply the muse, and maybe this song wasn't completely about his feelings for Noelle. Maybe it was, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. It's a pretty name to
hmm
use in a song, so I can definitely see why that works.
yeah,
Well, I think we covered this pretty well. I
yeah.
I really appreciate you being on the show. This was a great conversation. I appreciate your passion for this music.
I'm always passionate about music. It's the main thing that I am passionate about in life. And I'm very happy to be here and talk about it.
It's such a joy every time to have a guest, and I've been fortunate to, all year and for several years now to be able to talk to all these fans of even if we're just talking about music in general. Like we've talked about so many different artists
hmm
here, not just Andrew McMahon. Of course, that's the focus of the podcast, but like it's just such a joy to talk about music in general with people. So, and I can tell that you feel similarly.
Oh yeah, like I said about the ages, and it doesn't even matter that
Hmm.
you have however many years on me. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
put you on the spot and try to guess,
yeah, a
but
couple, few.
just a few. Yeah, it doesn't even matter in the context of talking about music, which is so special to me. Like I could talk about music to anybody for ages, apparently, and especially Andrew. I've got a history with him. Like, I've got
Hmm.
almost 10 years at this point, which I know a lot of people have, like, probably 20. A lot of people listening have probably more than 10.
Yeah, that's okay though. What's neat about the fan base is that there's no tiers of fandom. Like you're a fan, you're a fan. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if you came in on Tilt with the Wind No More or you came in and you were there for Ready Break, which I don't know many people who were there for the very, very
Yeah.
beginning, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You're a fan of his music, or you're a fan of a certain band that he's been a part of. There's people who, they like something corporate. I think we alluded to this earlier. People who like something corporate who aren't into the newer stuff. That's okay too. It's like
Yeah.
whatever. We can relate in the way that we enjoy some of the same music, and that's what's important.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I like the idea that Andrew maybe attracts like a kind of a diverse audience. I really like the
Hmm.
idea of that. Like I said, again, putting him closer to kind of the indie type of indie rock bands of the 2000s, like Death Cab, rather than, the pop punk of the early 2000s. But I think he attracts both.
You're right. Well, thanks for helping me wrap up something corporate fall here. So I had 4 episodes in this mini series where, and I hadn't done that before, where I wanted to do 4 songs from the same project. I just thought it was good timing, and it
Hmm.
it really helped that Josh came onto the show to kick things off.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to have some different guests on, some returning, some new, to help me talk about these songs. And it was, I really like the way we rounded this out because I started with Fall with Josh, and then
Hmm.
I did 2 songs off of North, Ruthless and Down. And then we went to like a much deeper cut than any of those, and
Yeah.
with Letters to Noelle today. So
Yeah, I'm flattered to be the one to talk about it because, yeah, I definitely have things to say. And, yeah, it's so cool that you had Josh on.
thanks for listening to the other episodes, and like, yeah, give the Josh one a listen when you
I
get a
definitely
chance.
will,
So.
yeah.
Well, I'll wrap this up with a quote from the song. Years of waiting, nothing fading, emptied out my pen, carved the rest into my hand.